hidden deep in the forests of Germany.
This is a very impressive example of Nazi engineering.
Concealed inside vast mountains.
It's almost exactly like a Bond villain's lair.
Lie the remains of one of the most intriguing engineering projects of World War II.
This is a do-or-die operation.
Vast underground factories built for the world's first operational jet fighter.
What they wanted to do was to build the entire aircraft here.
This is the incredible story of the Me262.
The Me262 was the most advanced fighter aircraft of its time.
And to build it, the Nazis will create a revolutionary subterranean lair. The biggest construction projects of World War II, ordered by Hitler to secure world domination. Now they survive as dark reminders of the Führer's fanatical military ambition. These are the secrets of the Nazi megastructures. Germany, 1945. A force of Allied bombers head for home after unleashing their deadly payload, when a mysterious shape suddenly appears in the skies.
Fighters, 10 o'clock. They're coming in. It's coming in a half roll. Pull her up, Chief. Pull her up, hurry.
It's Adolf Hitler's new wonder weapon, the Messerschmitt Me262. A revolutionary plane without propellers, capable of flying up to 190 kilometers per hour faster than anything the Allies have. At the controls is Adolf Galland.
Bombers directly ahead.
Galland has piloted over 700 combat missions, and this is the fastest aircraft he's ever flown. He knows the jet's incredible speeds give German pilots the edge in air-to-air combat. Galland rips the bombers apart. But it's not just the jet that's an awesome piece of Nazi engineering. Just as extraordinary is the top-secret factory where the Me262 will be built and made ready for war. An underground lair known as the Reichsmag.
Reichsmag was an incredibly ambitious project. It was an enormous undertaking and a very good example of Nazi engineering.
Jet historian Dr. Mike Pavelek is one of the few people to have been allowed inside. It's a colossal complex that wouldn't look out of place in a modern-day spy film.
It's almost exactly like a Bond villain's lair. The combination of underground tunnels, concrete bunkers, and a mountaintop airstrip would have been ideal.
The story of the Reichsmag factory and the high-tech fighter it built begins in the 1930s, when the race is on to produce the world's first jet aircraft. World War II historian and writer James Holland has studied the early years of jet development.
In 1939, you've got at least 7 or 8 different jet engines being developed by various German aircraft manufacturers, pioneering work to a greater degree than any other country in the world.
On the 27th of August, 1939, the Germans launched the world's first jet aircraft. The breakthrough means their air force could soon have a massive advantage over their enemies. But right now, the plane is only a prototype, unproven in battle. Just 5 days later, Hitler invades Poland. World War II has begun. And Luftwaffe chief Hermann Göring relies on his propeller planes to win the air war.
The leadership thought that the prop-driven aircrafts would be enough to run the victory. and that there's no need for something spectacular, unusual, and new like the Messerschmitt Me262.
Within months, Goering's Luftwaffe crushes the Allies in the sky and on the ground. By summer 1941, the Nazis occupy most of Western Europe.
Confidence amongst the Luftwaffe is enormous. It's sky high. The world has never seen the degree of conquest that the Germans manage. It seems they're completely unstoppable.
The Luftwaffe's success does have one unintended casualty. Their conventional propeller planes perform so well that the Nazis scale back their jet program. Development continues slowly. But by 1943, the tide turns. The German offensive in Russia fails. The Nazis are now on the defensive. American and British bombers wreak havoc on their industrial heartland. The Germans need a new weapon to seize back the initiative.
Hitler is obsessed with wonder weapons, and there are huge hopes for anything that involves dynamic and exciting new technology.
Hopes turn to Germany's revolutionary jets. By 1943, one aircraft emerges as a front-runner in the Nazis' jet program. The Messerschmitt Me262. The Me262 is like nothing ever seen before.
The Nazis believed that this aircraft was potentially a war winner, or at least, but this might be an answer to keeping American bombers out of the skies.
Determined to win Hitler's favor, Luftwaffe Chief Hermann Goering champions the new Me262 prototype. But it's still at test flight stage. Adolf Galland, commander of the Luftwaffe's fighter squadrons, is one of the first pilots to be given the chance to fly it. An ace with over 90 kills to his name, Galland's approval could help get the new jet into full production.
He is one of the most respected combat pilots in the Luftwaffe, if not the most respected. He's a pin-up. He's got bucket loads of charisma. Goering loves him. The Nazis love him.
On the 22nd of May, 1943, Galland arrives at the test center. He knows taking to the skies in this experimental plane is a risk. A test pilot has recently been killed, and there have been problems with the new engines.
This crate will probably shake me to death or break down at 3,000 meters, huh?
Galland is stepping into the unknown. He'll be flying 175 kilometers per hour faster than he's ever flown before. As Galland later recounts, the jet quickly blows away all his doubts.
I could see that this aircraft was not just our last hope in the air war. I could see the future of aviation for the next century right in front of me.
Galland thinks the Me262's speed could allow him to stop the Allied onslaught of Germany.
Now, if you're still a young guy like Galland is in 1943-44, and there's some super new technology which enables you to fly aircraft even faster than anyone ever before, you're going to grab that with two hands and say, yes, give me a bit of that.
With Galland backing the program, the German Air Ministry put in an order for 100 production Me262s just a few days later. High-tech aircraft factories are prime targets, and the new Me262 production lines are destroyed. German air chiefs need a solution if they're to build Hitler's new jet and regain control of their skies.
The problem is, for Germany, is they're now a nation in a hurry. They've got to develop places where the Allied bombers cannot reach.
The Nazis decide to hide Me262 production all over Germany. Wings, engines, and fuselages are built in forests, caves, and tents. But scattering production means different parts of the plane have to travel hundreds of kilometers before assembly can take place. They need a single, centralized location where a fast assembly line can be recreated in complete safety. In Kala, 230 kilometers from Berlin, an old porcelain mine that's already been earmarked for aircraft production could become the perfect hideaway. But transforming the inside of a mountain into a high-tech jet factory is something that's never been attempted before. Heading up the project is one of the most ruthless men in the Third Reich, Obergruppenführer Fritz Sauckel.
Sauckel was put in charge to get it running and get the airplanes in the air.
Fritz Sauckel is an early Nazi Party member and fanatically loyal to Adolf Hitler. He is now head of forced labor for the Reich. Sauckel will do whatever it takes to transform the old mine complex into a fighter-making facility.
He was very driven personally. He was also pushed very, very hard from above.
Hermann Göring, head of the German Air Force, is anxious for the Reichsmark factory to be built quickly.
It is still incredible to think of the enormous hold that Hermann Göring has over the Nazi war machine, and the Reichsmark is just another example of this.
Sauckel promises a bomb-proof factory that can produce 1,000 aircraft a month.
We can start production of the site immediately and at the highest intensity. I am confident the project will be a success.
But Sauckel faces a massive challenge: building a high-tech production line under a mountain.
And they have to do all this in the last year of the war, where everything is in short supply and in which the whole Third Reich's war effort is unbelievably stretched.
Sauckel has to deliver before Hitler's Germany is bombed into oblivion.
This is a do-or-die, boom or bust operation.
Tell me about what you want.
Something custom.
I need something stormtrooper white.
I love the old school look.
Visele tale
I'm just looking to see if you could turn this into a motorized vehicle.
sunt proiectele lor.
Oh my God.
Opere de artă, piesă cu piesă.
This is not going to be easy.
O echipă cu imaginație și elan. N-ai să vezi fier mort să le stea în cale. Motociclist din naștere. Premiera vineri la 9 pe National Geographic Channel.
Sunt o picătură de muștar pe un platou cu mici. În fața gustului puternic și amărui. Mai puternic și mai amărui decât orice alt gust puternic și amărui. Oh! Hamei, hamei, hamei.
Are altele și mai bune.
Bravo! Sunt de mulți cei cărora ne place gustul puternic și amărui al lui Neumarkt.
Telefoanele mobile conțin aur în valoare de $1. Băieții noștri însă vor să facă milioane.
Is that a lot of gold?
Aurul e bun și la artrită. Băieții noștri suferă cumplit.
We rolled the dice on this cut.
Goana după aur e cu risc. Dar băieții noștri pun totul în joc.
Leave rich or kill myself tribe.
Aurul din Yukon, în fiecare joi la 10. Până unde poate să meargă acest om ca să dea în vilea golăniile la care sunt expuși turiștii? Connor Woodman, într-o serie nouă cu fungași, în curând pe National Geographic Channel. Aceasta e scena unor crime. Numărul suspecților indefinit. Unde se pot ascunde? Oriunde. Ancheta e o întrecere cu timpul, pentru că descoperirea vinovatului înseamnă salvarea altor vieți omenești. Misiunea continuă. Experții ne asigură că zborul devine tot mai sigur. Dezastre în aer. Serie nouă. În curând pe National Geographic Channel.
Ai mintea plictisită? Dă-i atunci ceva de cheltuială. Vezi un nou sezon din Îți joacă mintea.
How would you figure out this problem?
I got it.
Avem și alte serii noi. Nu-i cum crezi.
Well, you might want to step back a little bit.
Și jocul numerelor.
Who says numbers can't be sexy?
Distrează-ți mintea. În curând, numai pe National Geographic. Cele mai ample proiecte ale războiului al Doilea Mondial.
Vast underground bunkers. Vast guns. Vast tanks. Hitler absolutely buys into the idea that big is better.
Megalomanie și revoluție industrială.
This is the apex of Second World War jet technology.
Câte ar mai fi de aflat despre megastructuri naziste? În fiecare luni la 9 pe National Geographic Channel.
In 1944, construction begins on the Nazis' underground fighter lair. From the outset, Fritz Sauckel has a problem. A massive army of workers is needed to build this subterranean factory. But for the head of forced labor in Hitler's Reich, the solution is obvious.
Out! Quickly!
Marcel van den Steen is a 23-year-old living in Belgium when the Gestapo abduct him from his parents.
Okay, I'm coming.
Marcel keeps a secret diary during the war years. It provides a rare insight into the brutal conditions faced at Sauckel's Reimark facility.
Out!
Quickly!
We were forced into a truck and then a train, and we were taken to Kala. Where are we?
No talking! Bob!
Marcel is one of 12,000 forced laborers transported across Europe and forced to work at Reimark. It's the beginning of a living nightmare.
It quickly became obvious that Fritz Sauckel had utter contempt for human life as he used a number of slave laborers brought in from camps specifically for this program.
The workers must fight to survive. They have to complete the tunnels before Sauckel can begin building planes.
A staggering amount of energy, logistical effort, resources, human and financial, and materials are being put into creating this.
Incredibly, the ruins of Fritz Sauckel's massive project still remain. Hidden in a clearing in a remote part of Germany, the broken rubble, silent witness to the Nazis' obsession with the Me262. Mike Pavelek wants to explore underground at the Reimark facility, but access is limited and extremely dangerous.
You use another way.
Local historian Marcus Gleichmann is on hand to lead the way.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
To travel back to Sauckel's secret wartime tunnels, they have to head deep under the Walpersberg mountain.
It's not too easy to find the right path.
I would imagine. It's a good thing we got you here.
Mike and Marcus access the tunnel system through the one remaining entrance. All other ways in and out have been sealed off. Trekking 700 meters underground, they arrive at production tunnels that were being dug in 1944.
Sauckel's plans for this place was to build the entire aircraft here. Jets, the engines, the components, the fuselage, everything.
The Nazis have to build an underground factory where they can assemble a 13-meter wide plane. Planners envision 75 separate tunnels, measuring 15 kilometers. Thousands will be employed on this immense task of enlarging the existing porcelain mine and building the new facility, including Belgian forced laborer Marcel van den Steen.
Nice.
Workers are selected for heavy or light duties depending on their strength.
This is not good.
You worthless piece of dirt, our light worker.
16-hour shifts with no breaks are commonplace.
This place would have been enormously difficult to build. Imagine having to remove all of the material from inside these tunnels, putting it outside, but just digging through this sandstone and then reinforcing it and building a production center under a mountain.
Conditions in the tunnels are terrible. Workers are forced to dig with little expertise and basic tools. Unstable bands of slate in the ceiling above mean that tunneling is a life or death gamble. Especially in areas where Sauckel plans to build even wider tunnels and bigger halls.
Well, this is very impressive.
It is one of the largest tunnels in this system.
The aircraft assembly halls are planned to be at the center of the mountain. Components built in smaller tunnels will be fed into this working area, where the Me262 can be put together.
The plan was to build it 450 meters in length and a height of 5.5 till 6 meters and a height of 15 meters, so that the whole airplane will fit in here.
But a cave this big might completely collapse during construction. So the Nazi engineers come up with a low-tech fix. Rather than excavating one big tunnel, workers dig 4 smaller tunnels, so the weight of the rock above remains supported. Within these 4 tunnels, they gradually secure the ceiling overhead and build up the foundations with concrete. Then they hollow out the cave until just 2 columns of rock remain. Once these are removed, a space big enough for a fighter jet is created.
And it was big enough in here for a full-size Messerschmitt 262.
Yeah.
Very impressive technology. All this was done by hand.
Yes, all this is done by forced laborers from all over Europe.
The Nazis have long-term plans to produce 750 jets a month at the Reimark facility. But building the fully functional factory is taking much longer than they hoped. And this isn't the only challenge the Me262 project faces. Willy Messerschmitt has built the world's fastest jet fighter. But it's so revolutionary, the Nazis argue over how best to use it. Ever since its conception, Adolf Hitler has had strong opinions on how to exploit the jet's deadly capabilities.
Professor Messerschmitt, is this aircraft able to carry bombs?
Yes, my Führer. It can carry for sure a 250-kilogram bomb, perhaps.
This is the Blitz bomber I have been requesting for years.
What Hitler wants to do is have an aircraft that can knock an invasion force back into the sea. And so he thinks a fighter bomber, which can combine the role of being a fighter and drop bombs, is the answer to that.
But Adolf Galland thinks that weighing down the aerodynamic Me262 with a bomb will slow it down. Hitler is destroying the jet's main asset as a fighter, its speed.
Galland thought that Hitler's request to make the aircraft a bomber was absurd. Galland knew that the Me262 was the point interceptor fighter that he was looking for to clear the Allied bombers from the skies.
If the Atlantic invasion comes, it can easily fly through enemy defenses, attack ground targets and escape at speed. You, Messerschmitt, have to make all the necessary preparations to make this feasible.
This was really the beginning of the misuse of the Messerschmitt 262. I felt my heart sink at that moment.
Hitler is more concerned about attacking the enemy than providing his fighter pilots with the jet they need to defend Germany from Allied bombers. If Galland is going to change how the Me262 will be used, he has to take on the toughest opponent in the Third Reich, the Führer himself.
Galland knows how to play the game. He knows how to manipulate and talk to the right people and get what he wants.
Galland enlists the help of Armaments Minister Albert Speer, one of the Führer's closest confidants.
Given the tactical situation, we believe the best we can do is use these aircrafts as a protective fighter force at our critical industries.
No, never. I will order the halt to all fighter aircraft production. If you persist in this, I will have the fighter arm disbanded.
But
I've heard quite enough.
This is how Hitler paints the war. It's how he's always seen the war. He's a man of extremes. There's no middle ground. It's always one or the other in his mind.
Before long, how the Germans use the Me262 is going to be less critical than how quickly they can get them into the air. The Allies are planning to launch the largest invasion armada ever seen against Hitler's fortress Europe. At the Rheinmark facility, Fritz Sauckel's underground plane factory is a long way from completion. The die-hard Nazi pushes his workers to the limit.
all the men must be fed, sheltered and treated in such a way as to exploit them to the highest possible extent, at the lowest conceivable degree of expenditure.
Hermann Göring promises Hitler that when the Allied invasion comes, the German Air Force will smash them on the beaches. Göring needs as many planes as he can get and puts the pressure on Sauckel to get things moving. But he might be too late.
Până unde poate să meargă acest om ca să dea în vileag golăniile la care sunt expuși turiștii? Connor Woodman, într-o serie nouă cu fungași, în curând pe National Geographic Channel.
Cumpără și fii pe fază. Noua Bucovina te premiază. Introdu pe Facebook codul răzuibil găsit sub etichetă și poți câștiga sute de premii, mii de euro și marele premiu, un autoturism Hyundai.
Servieta, transferul bancar, biroul, marfa, clienții, conducerea, resurse umane, preluare de acțiuni, directorul, Droguri SRL, o afacere de miliarde. În fiecare vineri la 10 pe National Geographic Channel.
Aceasta e scena unor crime. Numărul suspecților? Indefinit. Unde se pot ascunde? Oriunde. Ancheta e o întrecere cu timpul, pentru că descoperirea vinovatului înseamnă salvarea altor vieți omenești. Misiunea continuă. Experții ne asigură că zborul devine tot mai sigur. Dezastre în aer. Serie nouă. În curând pe National Geographic Channel.
Ai mintea plictisită? Dă-i atunci ceva de cheltuială. Vezi un nou sezon din Îți joacă mintea.
How would you figure out this problem?
I got it.
Avem și alte serii noi. Nu-i cum crezi.
Well, you might want to stand back a little bit.
Și jocul numerelor.
Who says numbers can't be sexy?
Distrează-ți mintea. În curând, numai pe National Geographic. Cele mai ample proiecte ale războiului al Doilea Mondial.
Vast underground bunkers. Vast guns. Vast tanks. Hitler absolutely buys into the idea that big is better.
Megalomanie și revoluție industrială.
This is the apex of Second World War jet technology.
Câte ar mai fi de aflat despre megastructuri naziste? În fiecare luni la 9 pe National Geographic Channel.
The 6th of June 1944, D-Day, the Allied invasion of France. Thousands of troops and tanks pour ashore, taking on Hitler's Atlantic Wall. None of the new Nazi Wonder jets are available to throw the Allies back into the sea. Worse, the Luftwaffe fails to provide the air support the German troops need. Goering's promise is false. The Allies secure their foothold and advance into mainland Europe. It signals the beginning of the end for the Third Reich. In desperation, work on the Reichsmark Me262 factory steps up a gear. Belgian labourer Marcel van den Steen is one of 12,000 labourers forced to work 16-hour shifts, overseen by brutal SS guards.
It's gone up. One slice of bread is now 4 cigarettes.
You swine! Back to work!
Saukel pushes Marcel and his fellow workers even harder. Starved of food and with the onset of winter, Marcel sees the death toll rise, along with the levels of brutality.
Workers get thrashed here like dogs, and so many have died in the last 6 months. I saw someone dying on the floor. I wasn't even allowed to help him. A German guard kept shouting, "Leave him! Keep walking, pigs!"
1,500 prisoners will die at the Reichsmark facility. By winter 1944, the factory under the mountain is still not ready. The Nazis are forced to construct buildings outside of the tunnels, where the production of plane parts can go ahead, including massive bomb-proof bunkers. There's simply no end in sight for Reichsmark's forced laborers.
My future here is looking bleak. I'm suffering here like it's hell. But I don't want to die here for Hitler.
But Fritz Sauckel's cruel regime begins to pay off for the Nazis. His workers are finally ready to assemble complete Me262s for the first time.
The resources and effort that are required to do that are just absolutely enormous, and yet they do it. It never ceases to amaze me the lengths to which the Nazis go to continue their war effort.
Sauckel's attention turns to the next challenge: how to get his new planes into the skies above Nazi Germany. Germany's railways have been bombed into oblivion, and Reimark is in the middle of nowhere.
The problem that Fritz Sauckel runs into is, how do you get the aircraft to where they're needed to be, their combat operational squadrons? There isn't a clear place anywhere in this valley to put an airfield. So he comes up with either the craziest idea in the world or the most ingenious idea in the world, and that's put an airstrip on the top of this mountain to move the aircraft out of this valley.
Reimark's very own takeoff site will have to be at least 1,000 meters long to launch the new jet. Marcel van den Steen is one of over 1,000 workers forced to work under strict guard.
Building the runway was an impressive undertaking. All of these trees had to be cleared, the topsoil had to be cleared, in addition to the concrete that had to be brought to the top of the mountain to build this runway.
The laborers eventually level off the top of the mountain and form a concrete runway. Sauckel is in a rush to launch the Wonder Jet. But the planes are still at the facility 85 meters below. Mike is on the hunt in the forest alongside Reimark's ruins to find out exactly how Sauckel hauls a fighter plane to the top of a mountain.
Well, these are the concrete pilings that the wooden trestles would have laid across.
1.5 meter wooden trestles are kept in place by concrete foundations that still remain today.
What this is an image taken at the end of the war, 1945. The picture is of the elevator that took the Messerschmitt 262 from this level up to the top of the mountain.
The assembled Me262 is hauled on a wheeled platform up a rail on the southern slope of the mountain to the runway above. Over 1,000 workers are employed in building Sauckel's ambitious vision.
The human and engineering effort to get an aircraft up 660 feet at a 25-degree incline is enormous. What this tells us is the Nazis were incredibly desperate, trying to get aircraft from bomb-proof production facilities up this mountain to an airfield at the top in order to get them into the war as fast as possible.
By January 1945, workers from factories all across Germany have given Hitler just 500 operational Me262s. It's not enough. But the Führer has given up on his fixation with using the jet as an attacking Blitz bomber.
Hitler finally relents, allows the Me262 to be developed specifically as a fighter, and after that, the argument is over.
The Führer gives orders allowing Adolf Galland to form his own jet fighter unit. He assembles Germany's top guns into an elite squadron. His aim? To finally prove the Me262 is the perfect defensive fighter.
We are to form the ultimate fighter squadron. We will be flying 262s as fully operational fighters. We have full reign to deploy them as we see fit. Gentlemen, welcome to the future of air war.
Me262s are rushed into battle across Germany, and the drive to get more of these jets into the air is immense. Nowhere is this pressure more obvious than at the Reimark facility. Mike Pavelek treks further up the Valpersberg mountain to find out more about just how the aircraft was hauled up the steep incline.
What we have here is the top of the aircraft elevator system. This was probably the wheelhouse for the entire elevator. And what that means is there were machinery components in here that ran the cables to bring the aircraft platform to this level.
The runway is no longer visible, lost to the forest. In 1945, it would be from this level that Sauckel's new jets would have to take off. But the 1,000-meter runway will be dangerously short for a new jet fighter.
They could have never landed if they had a problem, because it was too short of a runway to land. They had to go where they were going. There was no coming back.
The 21st of February, 1945, the big launch. Liftoff from the short runway will be touch and go. Marcel and some of his fellow workers are allowed to witness the risky first flight.
I hope he crashes.
Marcel may get his wish. But against all the odds, Reimag's first Me262 soars into the skies. Sauckel has delivered his first jet to his Führer.
From an engineering point of view, you've got to take your hat off to it. I mean, it's astonishing what they managed to achieve.
March 1945. The Nazi drive to get the new jets into the sky shows no signs of diminishing. The Allies are on the borders of Germany. The Soviets set their sights on Hitler and Berlin. The German capital already lies in ruins. There are not enough jet fighters to defend the city from bombers, but Hitler will never allow surrender. In one final act of defiance, his engineers fast-track an Me262 factory that takes the insanity of the Third Reich to a whole new level. In Mulhdorf, 70 kilometers from Munich in southern Germany, lie the remains of one of the most remarkable Nazi structures ever built. A desperate last-ditch idea to bolster the Me262 production line and give the Nazis more of the new jets they need.
This is the last remaining arch of a huge bunker structure that was planned and partly built by the Nazis during the last months of World War II.
These remains of Nazi architecture were once a vast barrel-shaped bunker, built using arches made of poured concrete.
The purpose of this bunker was to build parts for the Messerschmitt 262 fighter airplane.
It is planned to be 400 meters long, with 9 stories below, producing 900 jets a month.
This is a very impressive example of Nazi engineering.
Incredibly, this structure can withstand a direct hit from a 6-ton bomb.
Well, this is fantastic. How would you have built this?
They had a mountain of gravel for the form.
Under here?
Under here, where we're standing now. And on top of this gravel mountain, they would build the concrete.
Each separate arch section is built on top of a huge mound of gravel, which is removed once the reinforced concrete is set. But how did the workers move this gravel once the arch had been constructed? The dark secret lies beneath the earth in this secluded forest.
Ce bine e să fii pregătit. că vine o vreme...
Being a family man defines me, but being a prepper comes in close second.
Niște tipi grozavi care n-or să fie luați prin surprindere.
Apocalyptic events all happen on a cycle, and the cycle is all due now.
Apocalipsa. Ești gata? Urmează pe National Geographic Channel. Telefoanele mobile conțin aur în valoare de $1. Băieții noștri însă vor să facă milioane. Aurul e bun și la artrită. Băieții noștri suferă cumplit.
We rolled the dice on this cut.
Goana după aur e cu risc. Dar băieții noștri pun totul în joc.
Leave rich or kill myself tribe.
Aurul din Yukon, în fiecare joi la 10.
Tell me about what you want.
Something custom.
I need something stormtrooper white.
I love the old school look.
Visele tale
I'm just looking to see if you could turn this into a motorized vehicle.
sunt proiectele lor.
Oh my God.
Opere de artă, piesă cu piesă.
This is not going to be easy.
O echipă cu imaginație și elan. N-ai să vezi fier mort să le stea în cale. Motociclist din naștere. Premiera vineri la 9 pe National Geographic Channel. Servieta, transferul bancar, biroul, marfa, clienții, conducerea, resurse umane, preluare de acțiuni, directorul, droguri SRL, o afacere de miliarde. În fiecare vineri la 10 pe National Geographic Channel.
Până unde poate să meargă acest om ca să dea în vileag golăniile la care sunt expuși turiștii? Connor Woodman, într-o serie nouă cu fungași, în curând pe National Geographic Channel. Aceasta e scena unor crime. Numărul suspecților indefinit. Unde se pot ascunde? Oriunde. Ancheta e o întrecere cu timpul, pentru că descoperirea vinovatului înseamnă salvarea altor vieți omenești. Misiunea continuă. Experții ne asigură că zborul devine tot mai sigur. Dezastre în aer. Serie nouă. În curând pe National Geographic Channel.
Ai mintea plictisită? Dă-i atunci ceva de cheltuială. Vezi un nou sezon din Îți joacă mintea.
How would you figure out this problem?
I got it.
Avem și alte serii noi. Nu-i cum crezi.
Well, you might want to step back a little bit.
Și jocul numerelor.
Who says numbers can't be sexy?
Distrează-ți mintea. În curând, numai pe National Geographic. Cele mai ample proiecte ale războiului al Doilea Mondial.
Vast underground bunkers. Vast guns. Vast tanks. Hitler absolutely buys into the idea that big is better.
Megalomanie și revoluție industrială.
This is the apex of Second World War jet technology.
Câte ar mai fi de aflat despre megastructuri naziste? În fiecare luni la 9 pe National Geographic Channel.
In Muldorf, local historian Michael Gärtner searches for clues from Germany's Nazi past.
You can see the dimensions of the gravel removal tunnel, which was big enough to host a railway.
An underground railway runs beneath the entire length of Muldorf's vast fighter jet bunker. Carriages are moved into position below, allowing the fast removal of the gravel above.
A good part of the gravel came down itself by gravity, but there were prisoners working by hand removing the gravel from the carriages.
10,000 workers are employed on the project. 8,500 of them forced laborers and inmates of a nearby concentration camp network. Of these, more than 3,000 will die.
During the construction, the prisoners had to run with cement bags of 50 kilograms on their backs, and it would happen that they would slip out and just fall down into the liquid concrete and drown there.
Despite the horrific loss of life, only 7 of the 12 intended arches are built. The Germans are months off completing the factory, and no fighters will ever be made here. Just one of the massive arches now remains, a moving monument to the human cost of the Me262.
The whole thing is insanity. I mean, it's just, it's another sign of the way in which the final year of the Third Reich is just going more and more into the realms of fantasy world.
It is a fantasy that will soon be brought to an abrupt end. But first, Nazi fighter ace Adolf Galland still has a point to prove. His elite unit of fighter aces takes to the skies to attack Allied bombers.
This is very much the last huzzah, the last cavalry charge, so to speak, of the Luftwaffe.
Galland's new jet fighters are 190 kilometers per hour quicker than the fastest Allied planes. And Galland can use them as he wants, gunning down slow-moving bombers at high speed.
One of the major tactics was don't touch the throttles. Climbing to high altitudes, holding there, waiting for your targets, and then dashing through the targets with a speed that guns can't follow, and especially also the prop fighters can't follow.
The 18th of March, 1945, 37 Me262s take on over 1,300 Allied aircraft. The heavily outnumbered Germans shoot down 13 enemy bombers for the loss of 3 jets, a ratio of over 4-to-1. The Me262 proves how deadly it can be, but it's too little, too late.
The Luftwaffe, by the end of the war, didn't have enough pilots to fly these things. They didn't have enough fuel to fly them. They didn't have enough maintenance units to maintain them.
The Germans had a wonderful weapon. It was simply outnumbered by American and British material superiority.
The 12th of April, 1945, the Americans advance towards the Reimark facility. The troops are stunned by what they discover. A hidden subterranean factory built to create an aircraft that looks like something out of science fiction, and the camps of the laborers that were forced to construct it. After 8 months' imprisonment, Marcel van den Steen is a free man.
I don't believe this. My heart is beating. I just want to kill those men that made us suffer.
But Fritz Sauckel is nowhere to be seen. He's now a Nazi on the run. His plan to build hundreds of jets at the Reimark facility has failed.
By the end of the war, when this installation was taken over by the Americans, only 24 or 26 Me262s had left this installation, gone up the elevator, and taken off from this very short runway. Obviously not enough aircraft to change the course of the war.
Adolf Galland would ride his luck to the bitter end and pay the price.
My canopy was shattered and my right knee was struck by a bullet. I was losing power and in great pain, I flew for the deck.
Galland somehow manages to survive the crash. He's later captured and taken to England, where he would be interrogated about the Me262. On the 9th of May 1945, Fritz Sauckel, the man responsible for Reichsmark, was eventually captured at Hitler's mountain retreat. He's later tried at Nuremberg for his crimes and executed. Alongside him in the dock is Hermann Göring, who continued to believe the Me262 could have won the air war if more of them had been built earlier. This was an aircraft that would never be forgotten.
Anyone who has even just the remotest love of aviation cannot help but be seduced by the Me262. But you can't escape its origins and how it was built in horrific conditions, in underground factories, by a monstrous regime that was just responsible for some incredible level of misery and death and mayhem.
Ce bine e să fii pregătit, că vine o vreme...
Being a family man defines me, but being a prepper comes in close second.
Niște tipi grozavi, care n-or să fie luați prin surprindere.
Apocalyptic events all happen on a cycle, and the cycle is all due now.
Apocalipsa. Ești gata? Urmează pe National Geographic Channel.
Echilibrul apei Bucovina ne-a inspirat să creăm o nouă formă.